So psyched to
Good.
have
How
you.
you doing? Yes,
I'm
very
excellent, thanks.
excited.
I'm
It's
really,
been a
really
long time
good.
since I've seen you in person, right?
I know. Well, my God, in person, forget it. That has to be like, maybe 5 years ago or so. It's like, I think there was like one owner a long time ago that you were able to make. But besides that, yeah, no, we haven't kind of been in 3D together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. Good, good. Where are you based out of these days
Yeah.
now?
So I'm actually hanging out in Naples, Florida.
Okay.
My wife has really gotten to like Naples, and so she's kind of dragged me down here, for the winter. So I've been hanging out, down here. Which I gotta say, it's like I was brought down, kicking and screaming a little bit,
Okay.
but like now it's like I'm here. It's like I get to exercise every day. I'm on my bike,
Nice,
It's like,
nice.
I get to, just work out in the morning, and then I get my work, in the afternoon, and then, maybe pool or beach in the afternoon, or, late afternoon. So, life is good, so
Life is
she's
good.
made me a
Life is
convert.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm in Silicon Valley now, so yeah.
Yeah. So what are you doing in the Valley?
Yeah, I have to meet with a few startups that are in town. Then they had the GTC event, and then the whole thing with NVIDIA and those type of things like that. So I had to attend that.
Yeah.
So great, yeah.
Yeah. On fire, NVIDIA, it's like,
Oh, geez.
it's so interesting too. You like, you look at that, their story, um, it's like they are not only with like kind of first mover advantage, but it's like now with the pace of acceleration, of AI, like almost like no one can catch up to them. It's
Yeah,
like
no, honest.
unless they stumble, they can't execute. There is like a huge backlog in
Yeah,
GPUs. From what I've heard, is almost like 2 years. So that
yeah,
opens up a
yeah.
huge opportunity for competition.
It does. It
In the
does. Yeah,
marketplace, and
it
the
does.
market needs competition.
It does. It does. Yeah, to innovate. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
to look to see where they came from a gaming and their strategy to evolve to where that it's pretty impressive. And I was telling someone that I saw this. It was a cartoon that had it said who's going to make money in AI? Like this, right? And the cartoon showed the 49 or 1849 where it said, here's
Oh,
the people digging for gold, right? And there were a few that made money, right? But
yeah.
the ones
Right.
consistently making money were the ones selling the pots and the shovels and the pans, which is NVIDIA in a way
Yeah.
with this, right? So it was such a good cartoon. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's a great actually that's a great business model, and it's a great story.
yeah,
Everyone's kind of
yeah.
digging for gold, and the only folks making the gold are the tool manufacturers.
Tool
In that model,
manufacturers,
you
right?
know,
Yeah,
like yeah, I don't know. I've started to like put together a model for the kind of AI ecosystem, and let me know if if you agree with it. But I kind of view
sure.
like four layers of this ecosystem that's
Hmm.
developed. There's like the chip level, right? And
Hmm.
clearly Nvidia, was in there. AMD, Intel,
Right. Yeah.
Mellanox, and and others. Not Mellanox, yeah, Mellanox. Kind of in that market.
Hmm.
Then there's the infrastructure piece, right? And that's GPUs, DPUs, BPUs, CPUs.
Yeah.
It's also storage. It's also networking. It's security. It's all the
Correct.
infrastructure, pieces.
Right.
And then above that are all the kind of frameworks, right? And those are kind of open
Right.
sourced, and those are commoditizing, at a really rapid pace. And then on top of that are the applications like ChatGPT as an example, Gronk as like another, example,
Right.
as well. So, where, so those are the kind of four layers, that I've kind of like starting to like focus on in this marketplace.
Okay.
NVIDIA clearly dominates the kind of the chip space and also the
Hmm.
GPU space. But in the infrastructure, the rest of the infrastructure space, that's pretty much wide open, So,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of companies and room in that marketplace. The frameworks, I think that's kind of like I said, I think that's commoditizing quick. And then the applications space is the space that's really kind of wide open as well. And hopefully we'll see
Sure.
thousands of companies and a couple of really big companies that kind of emerge out of that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the way I've been
Yeah.
kind of
No.
viewing the market.
Yeah, I think it's a good layering it from that perspective. Kind of what I do is I as you know, I focus a lot on the telco and some really large enterprises, but I try to divert the discussion initially to get clarity. So when a CEO or board Nick asks me like, "Hey, what are your thoughts on AI?" I literally take a step back and say, "You're asking me the wrong question, right?
Mm,
The question should be, these are the challenges or these are the opportunities we want to go after. What technology enables me to get there?" Whether it's
mm-hmm.
AI or automation and that type of stuff, right? Because so many times we try to force feed that technology into that. And then when we get to the point that, yeah, there is an opportunity for AI, right? We kind of then segment it into two areas: is either AI for service or AI for infrastructure, which is related to using AI to optimize the environment, to optimize the customer experience or optimize the security, right? But then there's the other part of infrastructure for AI, which is that, right?
Yeah,
And I think too many people are confusing the two and
yeah,
totally two different types of mind. It isn't just AI for networking. It's like you
yeah.
said, storage capacity, compute, all those are needed in that area for that side of it. And those require two different types of discussion, right? So once we get that clarity, then we're able to map to see, okay, this is the direction you want to go in, or a combo to have something more sustainable in the discussion there.
Yeah, I think that's well, that's a kind of extremely rational kind of line of thinking and process there because I think a couple of thoughts that kind of spins off. One is that there we're kind of viewing like two different markets, right? And I think you alluded to that, right? So there's kind of AI infrastructure to support AI workloads, right? And that's
Right.
like that's one. And the hyperscale companies are all over that, right now.
Yeah, they're all over.
And also some like in the financials, there's a whole bunch of financials that are in the same boat. There's also just how AI is now permeating and becoming embedded into the infrastructure to deliver its own value, right?
Right.
So like I know you're going to be hosting a session at ONU on kind of like
Right.
on routing and what happens with routing as we start to as AI starts to become embedded into kind of protocol stacks. There's a lot of discussion around security, as
Yes.
well. Like Tom Gillis is going to do a keynote and talking about a product. It's like you and I have these Chinese walls that you can never try to like cross. But it's like so there's kind of going to be a really interesting product there that'll come out. But I think so. I view these two different markets, right? There's AI infrastructure for AI workloads, and then there is also infrastructure for any kind of workload, but
Yeah, yeah,
but
for
AI is permeating, those, and
permeating,
those
correct.
two
Yeah,
might meet at some
yeah,
point in time, right? Is
that's
that
correct.
how
And
you
that's the
view it
way I
too?
position it. Yeah, correct, right, correct, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right. Because realize, Nick, I have a slide. I should send it to you one time from 1980, I think
Oh my God.
85.
Yeah.
85, which is my neural network, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that was
Yeah.
if then, or statements, right? If then, more if then, but that was my neural network. So we've been doing AI for a long time, right? But now we're seeing, it's great to see that I get to live to see at least some of the fruits of some of that early work take into effect. I'm almost jealous that I'm not going to see where it's going to be 30 years from now. I take more of the positive view than
Yeah.
the negative view. When people ask me like, are you concerned about AI, right? Are
Hmm.
you worried about it? I'm like, I said, the reason we have lights is because of electricity. The reason we
Mm,
have this is because of electricity, right? Realize if you mess with electricity the wrong way, it can hurt you. It can do some
mm,
serious damage, right? But yet it didn't stop us for creating all this level of innovation, right? So I think
yeah.
when we look at it that way to say, yeah, electricity could be used to kill you in some cases or really do damage. I see AI in a similar type concept. I tend to look at more as the glass full, right? Maybe
Yeah.
because I'm an engineer, I always look at it as the glass is never empty; it's full. It's got something in it. I think AI is a similar route to electricity or other examples like that. There.
Yeah, my thinking is totally aligned with yours, on that, Ray. It's like, I tend to be a technology optimist, and I always look in the
Yeah,
good,
same here.
of what, because like actually that's been our history. Like, in every major, kind of transition, whether that was like, from kind of mainframes into PCs to the internet, evolution, like we never really spent that much time thinking about kind of downside,
Right.
of those transitions. This is the only one that we really are spending a good amount of time, and I think it's clearly warranted. Actually, I think it's really healthy, to have those discussions. But I
Yeah.
tend to agree with you. It's like um, uh, if I usually to a fault will kind of look towards the positive,
Right. Yeah.
maybe
Same here.
not
Yeah.
being Pollyannish, but also like I just see more good than I see, bad. There's
Same
always bad
here. Same here.
actors,
Yeah. Yeah. There's always going to be bad actors. Always in any situations, you're going to have those bad actors. But I always try to look at the good. Like you see some of the stuff going on in medicine, and I mean healthcare. I mean, it's just amazing some of the work that's going on in that area. So absolutely.
The rate of change that we're about to like go through is just amazing. Like over the last 8 years, there's been like about a thousand-fold increase in compute,
Yeah.
power. Like that kind of blows Moore's law away.
I know. Right.
And we're living, in exponential change times, and it's kind of hard, I think, for most of us to realize that, because, like, if you look at, exponent graphing on a log scale, it's linear,
Hmm.
so that's our perception that, not that much change from like, last year to this year. But then when you look back 5 years, you're like, holy shit, yeah, a
Holy
lot,
shit.
has
Right.
changed. And so
Exactly.
that's the exponential part of
Yeah.
it, that we just absorb it,
We
in
absorb.
these, in these short amount of times, and we get used to it like really quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, you're right. But you're going to live for another 30 years. I know you are. Like, you always have great shape. You're always in great shape. You come from
Thanks.
a background of an
Yes.
athlete, in baseball. So I don't
Yes.
know, I think
Yeah,
you're going to be there.
baseball in our family, you either play baseball or you're excommunicated, right? So that's the
Oh,
way our baseball is. Yeah. Yeah. It's like you sit at the kitchen table and it's like all baseball growing up and stuff like that there. So, yeah, absolutely. Which
how
was a
good. What a
perfect
great culture.
transition to being an analyst and consultant because baseball's all stats. It's
Yeah.
all
It's all
stats. You
numbers.
determine,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all numbers and stuff. So it's a good logical transition to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So all right. So so we dove in before really kind of properly, going over like your background, so we need to do that.
Okay.
So all right.
Sure, sure.
So like, I know a little when Ray, I've always had so much respect for you, because I think you're one of the
Oh, thank you.
nicest, analysts, that are in our group.
Oh,
Always have
thanks.
something
Yeah.
kind to say, to someone, and your work is diligent, and you just do a great job both on your work side and also like in the relationships,
Oh,
that you
thank you.
create. It's like, I love that I've known you for like so many years, and
Oh, I
like
know,
I
a
said,
long
I
time.
always
Yeah.
value
Well, feeling is
the time that I
mutual.
get to talk.
Feeling is mutual. Yeah, feeling
Oh,
is
thanks.
mutual. Yeah, no,
Thank
seriously.
you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so
So
what do
tell
you
me,
want
all
to
right,
know
so
about the background there? Yeah. So I
how
was
did you
born in
get
the
into this?
Dominican
Yeah,
Republic. Yeah, I was born in the
yeah.
Dominican Republic, right? So for people that don't know, the island is so small. It's Espanol Island. We share it with Haiti. Right?
Yeah.
So really, there you have options. You go to school or you play baseball, right? Pretty much. Even though it's kind
Yeah.
of expanded a little bit, and we kind of, my family left there just because there was, more of a fascist type government. Even though they were switching to a democratic, it kind of switched to democratic eventually, but the fascists were still going on where they would raid your homes and all that. And then my dad and oh yeah, yeah,
It
decided,
was
hey,
like,
let's go to the U.S. Let's go to the U.S. I hear this is the land of opportunity. You work hard, you do what you have to do, and he had the foresight to bring us to the U.S. And one thing that was my Spanish is not that good. I shouldn't say it's not professionalized because my
mm,
dad refused to let us speak Spanish in the house. He
huh.
said, we're going to learn English. We're in this country. You're not going to be those Dominicans that have that heavy, heavy Spanish accent, right? Type of thing, right? Which was hard because we're there with a book. How do you say this? How do you? But it did have
Uh,
a major effect on there. But baseball was a big part of our life, right? For that point, it paid for it paid. I was all state in high school. It paid for college, and then I was
um,
fortunate enough to play some pro ball and coach pro bowl where I won two amateur World Series ring, and then I coached a bunch of other
mm.
teams like that. And I still do coaching. I don't know how familiar you are with the stuff that I do. So my
Mm.
specialties it's to, and I don't know if this is the direction you want, Nick. No,
Oh
the
yeah, for
personal
sure.
stuff.
No,
Oh, okay,
I'm
perfect. Yeah,
totally
yeah,
fascinated. Yeah, no,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
so I, because of the baseball background, right? One of the things that I do, and I've been fortunate enough, I live in Arizona, where I ended up having a house with a big backyard with a batting cage. Was baseball is getting so specialized that it's getting very expensive for this younger community to afford
Mm,
that specialized. But in order for you to compete, you need that specialty training, right? So I
mm.
started a free, what I call backyard baseball, backyard catching, backyard hitting, and we've been able, and it's for free. The only thing we ask is that you give back when you
Mm.
graduate and when you make it back and this and it's pretty exciting because over the last 12 years that we've done this, right, we've had over 390 scholarships of kids that couldn't afford colleges be offer out of there. We have 17 pro players that have that come out of there, and it was just nice. One of them just sent me a picture. He's playing shortstop with the Houston Astros next to
Wow,
Alex Bregman. I'm going like, this is just amazing. So it's my way to
how
give back, and then
awesome.
I do the mental side of it. My real
Yeah,
specialty is I do catching, the
yeah,
tools of ignorance we call it, because you got to get pretty stupid to get back there with all this gear and block a ball and actually, enjoy doing it. So my specialty
yeah.
is catching and then the mental
Huh.
side of it, where I
Oh,
focus on the whole thing on how to rehabilitate the mind and now what's happening because of that sports background, there's certain businesses that says, will you come in and teach our department or our group on the mental toughness that the pro athletes do and stuff like that. But you're normally, like I said, I do that as a way. I've been fortunate enough as a way to give back to the community, and I just ask, all
yeah,
I ask is you guys pave it forward, give back and stuff. So it's a motivation foundation there. So
yeah. So it's the Moda
yeah.
Nation Foundation. Is that the
Motivation,
URL?
motivation,
Motivation. Oh my God, how cool.
foundation, right? But what I do is I don't like making it about me. I like making
Mm,
it about the kids. Like we just had one.
yeah.
Honestly, this is pretty special. This kid, training him since he was a freshman. He just sent me a picture, Nick. I almost brought a tear to my eye. Colin
Mm,
Braceworth, right? Ended
yeah,
up working, being an all-state senior in high school, right? Grades were okay. Went to a
yeah.
JUCO college, played a D1. He just because of his work ethics, he ended up going to medical school, and he just sent me a picture where he says orthopedic
Mm.
surgeon for Mayo Clinic. He just got
Wow.
selected. Now, that was just literally
Wow.
last week, right? So I'm like,
Wow.
these are the type of things that, I love doing. So I don't like making it about me. I like making it about the program and giving
Yeah.
back and stuff like that there. Yeah.
God,
But
look what
anyway,
your
that's
dad did.
yeah,
Look what your
yeah, yeah.
dad
Think
did.
about it. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He
It's true.
brought you
Yeah.
guys here, made sure like okay, like you get assimilated, and he
Yeah.
raised some good kids, and that kind of fostered this kind of value, to all these kids. Wow,
No.
just hats
Yeah.
off to
Yeah. No,
him.
I
Hats
enjoy
off
it.
to you. That's
And it keeps
that's
me
that's
balanced, though.
wonderful.
You know what I mean?
Oh my
Because
God,
you know how
yeah,
our work life could get pretty hectic and stuff like this. So it keeps me balanced that, hey, there's things more important than just whether this router works or this architecture or something like that. Yeah.
well,
Definitely
yeah,
keeps the
well, for
balance
sure.
there.
This is like
Yeah.
the important
Yeah.
stuff that people will always remember you by, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
and that it's to care, and to
It's
give
true.
back, and to like, and I think you get such a high when you help out, especially a kid, who is matriculating through, whether that's junior high or high school, and
Right.
they're trying to get into college, or they have some passion, and you can tap into that and help them, with that. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And the feedback that you get from that, like those letters,
Yeah, the letters, right? Yeah,
that's like gold.
yeah, yeah.
That
It
is
is.
that's really wonderful. Really,
Even though the
congratulations.
times have changed, Nick. See, me and you are old. We used to get
Mm.
letters. Now I get text messages or
Well,
emails,
that's okay.
right? Which is just as powerful, right?
It just, yeah, it's words.
It's
Who
words,
cares about,
exactly.
yeah,
It's
who cares
words,
about the delivery? Wow.
exactly.
Well, that's really good. So,
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
URL. What's the URL in case
Oh,
anyone
well,
wants to
actually,
check it
what
out?
I do is for every event, like we're doing one now with the Cancer Society. So I could send you the link for it's Rally for Life now. So what I do is I pick a certain thing and then say, okay, this is what we're going to go after. So this particular one is the Rally for Life,
Yeah,
which is affiliated with the Cancer Society.
yeah.
And we have what we call they walk during the night and stuff like this where they get donations. And I've been fortunate to help them out every year this time of year. So I can send the link, but it's Rally for Life of Arizona Cancer Society right now.
Awesome. Yeah, send the link, and
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
post it up with the with the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah. No,
As
of
well. It's a
course.
side
Of
of you
course.
that I didn't know, and I'm sure that lots of other people just don't
No,
know.
no,
So,
thanks. And I tell
that's
you, there's certain maybe there's because I'm a Buddhist, right? Maybe there's certain karma associated with it because I'm a two-time cancer survivor, right? And I think,
wow.
that's where I got the hairdo, Nick, right? I think
Huh.
because of those kids rooting for me and my family and all that, it gave
Yeah.
me like the ammunition and the power to get through, that turmoil and stuff like that. So I'm like, you know what? They give
Wow.
back to me
Hmm.
just as much as I give to them, you know?
Yeah. I had no idea. I had no idea. That your struggle, with cancer, and a two times, survivor is huge. I would have never thought, Ray, because you are always kind of the picture of health. You always,
Oh,
you're
thanks. Yeah,
always
well,
cut.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I learned quick because I remember I don't drink, don't do alcohol, don't do drugs, right? Because I was an athlete. And I
Hmm.
learned quickly cancer doesn't discriminate on wealth, doesn't discriminate
Yeah.
on race, doesn't discriminate
Yeah.
on age, doesn't discriminate, on whatever. So, and then my sister got the same thing. So it had to be something from Dominican Republic or something like that that might have been inherited because we were both
Mm.
in top shape, you know what I
Ah,
mean, and stuff. That's when I'm like, oh, there's some cancer that really doesn't discriminate, right? So yeah,
that's like crazy, because like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, you kind of think like, if you're really fit and you're really taking care of yourself,
yeah,
that you're kind of like you're building an immunization, against these things, and it's not true,
yeah,
just
yeah,
totally
yeah.
not true. And
Not
so,
in all cases, right? Exactly, right? Yeah, yeah, true.
yeah, well,
Anyway, now
I'm
you're getting
glad
all
that you
personal
survived.
with me there, Nick.
Well, I'm sorry, but well,
No,
this
no,
is,
no, it's okay. It's good. Yeah, it's
mm,
good. Yeah,
well, I think,
yeah.
well, maybe there's one thing before we go through that. So, like, what got you through that? What
Yeah,
got you
no,
through,
I
like,
honestly
these?
think because of the mental side of it,
Hmm.
I literally am convinced that that is the nut that hasn't been cracked in our industry yet, is the mental side of it. And I really didn't know till I was done from baseball and I ran into an old coach that we used to compete against us, right? And I'm like, I need to ask you a question because I always saw you as this brilliant coach, but I thought you were pretty stupid to not pitch to me and pitch to the other guy behind me because the other guy behind me was like number one in home runs, number one in batting average, number one this.
Mm.
Why would you walk me to pitch to him? And he goes, "You don't understand, kid. You'll learn this." He goes, "We looked at your batting average. Anytime it was late innings, your batting average was over 400. This other
Mm.
person was 100. Anytime there
Oh.
was a one-run ball game, a two-run ball game, your batting average was over 500. His was not even in the 100. So your mental toughness just turned on to the level
Mm.
that we're not messing with that. And that's when I realized, like after that discussion, going, I need to study this more.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
love that.
And
It's
so
so data
yeah,
driven.
Yeah, yeah, it was very, very data driven and stuff. So like
Yeah.
when I coached pro ball, I remember having this man child, Nick, come into my office, 6'7". Yeah, I think he had an 8-pack. He didn't even have a 6-pack, right? Coming in my office screaming and yelling, right? Like, why am I batting seventh in the lineup, right? Why am I not
Right.
batting fourth? Because I'm leading the team in home runs. And I
Right.
literally took the stats and say, number one, we're in
Mm.
first place, and as a coach, that's what I get measured by. So we're in first
Yeah.
place. Number two, you only hit home runs for me when it doesn't matter.
Uh,
When the games
yeah.
are on the line, this is where you're batting. So instead of yelling at me, go to the mental coach that we have and
Yeah.
start working on why is that the case. So
Yeah.
I
Wow.
think
Mm.
that fortitude of not giving up, because I was very fortunate. Literally the first time, it was one of those things where you look at my chemistry, all the blood work, I had no business walking out of there, right? And I really think
Mm.
it was that toughness of not giving in, because there were people that had less. They had stage 3, I had stage 4, right? That didn't
Wow.
make it
Yeah.
through. And I think they were in what I call, see, I have this thing called post traumatic growth, right? Is
Uh-huh.
you have an option when you have a major traumatic event. You have an option
Mm.
to do post traumatic growth or get into the mindset of, poor me, why did I get this? And all that energy is wasted on, you
Yeah.
already have it. What good is it lingering on how you got it? You got it. Deal with it. And I think that's the same thing with sports. With that mean, okay, you messed up. Let's figure out how we do. So I think that post traumatic growth mindset is what got me through this, and it gets me
Mm.
through life in general. There, yeah,
Yeah, it's a big life lesson, that's for sure. But like, man,
yeah,
that's a hard way to learn that lesson.
it is. It is a hard
It's
way.
like that's, that's
Yeah,
like, that's got to be the hardest way, to kind of learn
it
that
is. It
lesson.
is.
It's
It
like,
is. Yeah.
to like, but you can see it. Like, I'm not sure I would be as tough as you. It's like you get hit with, that kind of news, and you're kind of going through that, through that process, which is not an easy process. It's a really difficult, process, treatment, protocol, and then and then I can just like imagine myself, just thinking, having pity on myself, feeling sorry for myself,
Right. Well,
and
that's normal.
you
That's
know,
normal.
yeah,
Right. And the
yeah,
idea is, like, the way I explain it to a lot of pro athletes and business people is, if you look at, let's say, like Tom Brady, if you follow football, or any
hmm,
of the top players, some of them have 2 or 3 coaches for
yeah,
different functions. If you call a plumber, right, to repair busted pipe, or electrician repair, they come in with their set of tools to fix it.
mm,
Without their set of tools, they can't. It's the same thing with the mind, is that I at least use for kids, is to say, my job is to give you a set of tools that you use them when you can't, like how to breathe, how to
mm,
do soft focus. I mean, isn't it crazy? Because I have to teach them how to breathe the right way.
yeah,
But this is the set of tools that I say that a plumber, electrician use to get you to start building in that mindset. But the mistake too many people make is they look for a little shortcut,
yeah,
and there isn't, it isn't. It's a long process to rehabilitate the mind in that. But yeah, I try to say,
yeah,
here's your set of tools, like electrician, learn how to
mm,
use them and practice them. Because if you don't practice them, you're not going to be successful.
yeah. It's it's interesting. Like, I've been reading, Peter, Attia's, book. I think it's called Outlive,
Hmm.
and so he's,
At live.
yeah, so he's really focused on kind of longevity, and the things that that you can do, today. I love this one part of his thinking is that try to imagine like what you want to do like when you're in your 90s. Do you want to like hike?
Okay.
Do you want to be able to pick up your
Hmm.
kids, your
Yeah.
grandchildren? Do you want to, swim? How long do you want to be able to swim? And
Right.
he's just saying, okay, just try to like envision that time frame. And now, okay, where are you, physically? So
Yeah.
like, what's your VO2 max? What is your grip strength?
Yeah.
What is your lean
Nice.
body mass? What is your fat body mass? What's your overall body composition? And then he'll present charts, to say, okay, well, if you're like in your 50s and 60s, and if you're at these particular kind of, levels, then if you don't do, if you just kind of like continue to like live without really working it,
Right.
then your VO2 max is going to like degrade. If you get into like the 20s, and like your quality of life is just going to fall off a cliff, and
Right.
so I think
Exactly.
so it's like I think that's been kind of interesting to kind of just think kind of through longevity that way, and thinking about what you can do now,
Yeah.
and
What
do
you
the
can do
hard
now.
work now, so that
I
if
like
you're
that.
fortunate enough to make it like into like your 90s, then you can have a really good kind of quality of life, with the
Correct.
people that you love, and your friends.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so sorry to
No,
kind
no,
of
definitely. I might have to look that up
just
there. Yeah. Yeah.
distracted that. Yeah, it's like I've been gotten into like a lot of biomarkers as of late, and
Okay.
been kind of like studying that kind of stuff. We have heart disease in our family, and so it's like so
Hmm.
I follow my lipids, and I follow my APB,
Hmm.
levels, and those. So whatever I can do to try to prevent
Hmm.
particular risk or mitigate particular risk, I kind of focus on that,
Smart
but
move. Yeah. 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 Smart move. Yeah.
try
I
anyway,
always say, while people do that, always work on the mindset too, meaning including in there the meditation or the relaxation to slow down the mind as you do those. Because I think, like I said, above the shoulders is where people didn't work. Because, like I told you, I just see some of these people specimen of a body.
Mm.
And in sports we call them mental midgets, right?
Ah,
One little
yeah,
adversity messes them up, one little
yeah,
adversity or something like that, right? So
yeah.
working above the shoulders just as much. Yeah.
All right, well that's I need some tools to work on that.
There you
You
go.
know?
There you go. There you go. Right. I'll get you a little tool set. We'll start with the
Awesome.
breathing, right? We'll start with the breathing part, right?
Breathing is good. I like breathing.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So hey, well let's spend a little bit more time like kind of talking about the thing that we share, around the
Sure.
industry. So
Hmm.
so we spent some time talking about the AI, part of things. And have you thought about, how like infrastructure will change, over the next couple of years? So like I think maybe how we can kind of bridge a gap between kind of the telecom industry and kind of the whole AI kind of infrastructure and networking piece is that um, from what I've kind of gleaned is that a lot of the folks in the telecom industry are really looking for kind of AI to really help on their OpEx, reduction, and even their CapEx reduction. So they're looking at it as a major kind of automation, efficiency, efficacy, play. I'm not sure if if you've been focused on that, or if
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
area that you've been thinking about.
Yeah, that is an area that I've been talking to quite a few about, quite a bit actually,
Mm,
from people in Europe and in the U.S. It's a hot topic, right?
mm,
So yes, the first part is the low-hanging fruits are initially about what I call cost optimization, right?
mm,
To say, if we look at everything from how we optimize the network today, could we leverage AI to help us optimize it more efficiently? If could we use AI to handle our traffic management more effectively? Because some of these things are at a volume that is difficult to try to do. Even how we handle customer service, right? Could we
mm,
use leverage AI to do that? But there's a certain point though that you say, how much lower could we go? Right.
mm,
So not all the discussions are just related to cost optimization, right? They start that way, but then others, when they start seeing a little bit of the power of AI, they're like, is there a revenue opportunity there for me or not? Right. And
mm,
those are some of the debates that are going on now. Like, is there a way for me, for enterprise customers that are concerned about data sovereignty, for instance, right?
mm,
Could I offer some inference in AI that the data is controlled in a certain local area? So there's little pockets of that. Is there an opportunity to offer some knowledge base, leverage AI as a service or some chat box? So there are some looking to see, is there a revenue play there at all for me, or do we just let the web scalers? Right now, you see Microsoft leading the charge for enterprise going to them with workloads just because,
Yeah.
they have the open AI. So if you're an enterprise, you're like, well, maybe I should look there. But they are little pockets I see of certain enterprises going, I don't know if I'm able to even do that. I need to figure
Mm.
out some alternative because of the data sovereignty and some of the other security concerns or certain latency issues that are required based on their requirement. But some of the use cases being discussed, Nick, are pretty exciting. Like one was looking at this thing saying we're getting too many fiber cuts in some of these regions. So they're like, hey, we could download the construction thing from the city when they're going to be digging, what dates, and just have some trucks nearby there. To do
Mm.
that as a human would be impossible. Now they've got this big data and they're doing that
Mm.
and they reduce the time. They can't reduce the number of fiber cuts because they're going to cut anyway, but at least the
Yeah.
time that to repair is reduced tremendously. So time to remediation, you see stuff like that, which is pretty exciting with the telecom there. So that's kind of like the two
Yeah.
angles that I see initially.
Yeah, well, those are really important because, like, they've
Yeah,
spent so much money on the kind of 5G spectrum, and
yeah,
and so trying to get a return on that, has been challenging,
yeah.
and
It has.
so if there are ways in which that they can further kind of reduce OpEx, and make the service better, then that's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing. But I tell you though,
yeah.
it's tough though in the telecom space. Well, I don't know, you tell me, but
Hmm.
it's interesting because like we think about the pandemic and how obviously the major shift towards remote work. The real winners, in my view, really were like the telecom providers. It's like they provided the infrastructure that we can all
Totally
work
agree.
remotely, but they weren't celebrated. Who was celebrated was Amazon and Google and Microsoft.
Zoom.
You know, yeah, and well, clearly, yeah, and Zoom and they're deserving, as well, but really, I don't think the telecom providers
Totally
got any
agree.
love.
I
It's like,
agree. I actually have to tell you, I actually sent an email. I think it was Time that had either Zoom or somebody saying like person of the year, like during the pandemic.
oh,
And I sent an
yeah,
email. Do you know what a cloud is? A cloud is a network. It requires
yeah,
servers. It requires
mm,
infrastructure. So you're
yeah,
thanking the wrong people, I said,
yeah, yeah,
because of connectivity, right?
yeah,
So, but you're right. I think people in our industry, right, have realized the importance of communications and all that
yeah,
for years, right? But during the pandemic, I think Verizon saw over 21 minutes per day increase per subscriber. People just communicating, just try to stay in
mm,
touch per day. I mean, that's a big
that's a
number,
lot.
right? That
Yeah,
happens because, but you're right. Telecom, because of more of their reservations and stuff, should have been out there saying this is happening because of us, right? And they're
yeah,
not doing a good job of even like if we look at the cloud, right? If you have a bad cloud experience, right, from that perspective, you're going to call Google. I mean, is it bad? And people forget if that underlying infrastructure, the underlay is bad,
yeah.
you're going to have a bad cloud experience,
You're
right?
gonna have a
And
bad.
and they
Yeah,
haven't done enough of a good job of saying in the pandemic we've been the platform of innovation. And that's what I've been trying to convince them to say. Look at yourself as the platform for innovation that you're creating this layer to allow the Zooms and the others to create that level of innovation because it solved the mental issue, it solved the communications issue. It was telecom was vital I mean, I think about retail businesses, Nick, how they had to go in and turn into this area with ordering remote, without telecom and connections, business continuity would have been almost disastrous
yeah.
in that piece. So I totally agree 100% that they should have done a better job of saying this is why this continued to work. That we prepared for this,
Mm,
right? I mean, you think about when I used to build networks, Nick. I used to once it was at 42% utilization, I automatically would have a backup link. That's the way.
right.
Why? Because we
Yeah,
don't lose our jobs that way, right?
yeah.
Because they created this overcapacity in the network, we were able to address the pandemic like we've been prepared for this. We've been prepared for this,
It's really they
So
kept the
yeah,
economy, the
yeah,
global economy going, and
yeah.
it's like really it's one group that really deserves a lot of really accolades and
I
celebration,
agree.
and so they meant, but for one reason or the other, they didn't get it, and it's like, and if we look at kind of like how the telecom industry has evolved and with relation to the cloud market, so this is like really from 2007, on, so it's like 15 years, something like
Yeah.
that, um, it's like crazy. Microsoft has a market cap over $3 trillion right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like the cloud providers are pretty close to like what, like almost like 10 times, like maybe
Yeah.
seven
10 times.
times,
That's right. Yeah.
bigger,
Yeah. Yeah.
than the telecom providers. And I get, I think they lost a major kind of opportunity there,
They did.
or they weren't able to partner in the right ways. We'll see if Cloud Edge, provides any, realignment of that and
Hmm.
rethinking, of that. Where you mentioned kind of latency, where latency is really important, where you
Hmm.
want to be able to do processing where the data is, and so a much more distributed cloud infrastructure, becomes required, in those areas. And maybe that's an area where they can kind of reemerge, and grow their businesses.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been tough for them for a while, right? Like if you mentioned 5G, initially they thought they were going to get a premium in the ARPU for consumer.
Yeah.
And some there were some countries, I remember there's one person in the UK that called me saying, "Look, we're getting a 15% premium on the ARPU," and he started laughing at me. I said, "Wait till another competitor enters your market and you'll see." 3 months later, they were back to the same ARPU as 4G. So
Yeah.
there hasn't been that killer app,
Yeah.
and there hasn't been the proper business case,
Yeah.
like you said, in these areas for that. Where in many cases, I talk to them, "Why are you deploying 5G?" Well, because my competition's deploying it. Well, what's your business case? We really don't
Yeah.
have a good monetization side of that. It's more to protect our existing
Uh,
customer base, right? So you
yeah.
think about all that investment, billions invested just to protect the customer base. Now they have been looking at diversifying to certain verticals like private 5G and trying to look to say, how do we expand from this? But it's not taking at the rate. Yeah, you've got some private 5G expansion, but not at the rate that I think they initially expected, at least from the mobile side of it there. So, and then if you look
Yeah.
at the interesting, traffic still continues to go up. You know,
Yeah.
last year I think it was, I don't know what it is this year, but it was like 24% year over year growth in traffic, and yet
Uh,
people, on the phones, I think on the phones still want to pay the same as 4G, right? So yeah,
yeah. I
it's a
know.
tough
It's like,
model.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
yeah. They don't see really. Well, the apps really haven't demanded a lot more bandwidth, to kind of like drive on your phones anyway.
yeah.
But I think, it's like even on the private, private 5G space, like the I think the telecom industry, they always fall into like a kind of an echo chamber in thinking, meaning
Hmm.
that they talk to themselves a lot,
They do.
and yeah, and they don't bring a lot of the consumer, the real consumer, like the end consumer, thinking and requirements into that. So they'll go after like use cases like OT and IT integration, like manufacturing, which are good use cases, for
Yeah, yeah.
5G, for private 5G, but they're limited. They're kind of like,
They're very
they're
limited.
siloed, and there really hasn't been a really good play for a kind of a general purpose like 5G, like a Wi-Fi, has
Yeah,
been, and so you have Wi-Fi that continues to like, march on, and you have 5G
much
that,
on.
continues to move on as well. But yeah, they haven't been able to kind of figure out that kind of more general purpose horizontal play there, for them.
Yeah.
And you would think that maybe there is the combination of kind of processing data closer
Hmm.
to where it resides or where the source
Right.
of it really is, whether that you're using 5G there or not, what have
Hmm.
you, processing closer, those might be more general purpose, kind of use cases. And I know there are groups that are working on it. I'm not sure if they
Yeah,
have the
there's some
will,
groups,
you
right,
know.
working on that right now, and they're trying to look,
Um,
a lot of those groups, to say we have all this valuable data. could we find some ways of monetizing some of that using some type of AI thing? But I think one thing that I'm tracking closely to see how well it works is this whole concept, Nick, regarding net code and tower code and that areas.
Yeah.
And the whole concept is that, and there's different papers, Deloitte and Touche and others have wrote some good papers that I could say they did a good job of explaining to say, you've got this massive infrastructure. Some have regulatory issues, right? So sometimes they're risk averse because they have to be. Like if you look
Sure.
at
Yeah.
AT&T being down, right? You have first responders and all these people down. If I was talking to someone who works in the business saying, what is it going to be in fines for AT&T and SLA violation? He goes, I'm
Mm.
estimating $1 billion, right?
Wow.
Think about it,
Yeah.
right?
That's huge.
Google
Yeah.
snips down, they don't have those regulatory
Yeah.
concerns and stuff like that. So there's the discussion about disaggregating the telco so they can move. And there's been some,
Mm.
I guess, glimmers of success. So if you look at the tower companies, right,
Yeah.
they've kind of disaggregated, and they have almost in some cases between 6 to 11 times higher market evaluation
Mm.
that, and they have I think 3 to 7% in some cases, even double digits higher margin than a
Mm.
telco. So the idea is to disaggregate and create a netco, a soft co and a
Yeah.
tower
Wow.
code so that they could, now it's a long term. You see Telecom Italia kind of
Yeah.
trying to do that. And there's a
Mm.
few others in Asia to see, are we able to move at a faster pace? Are we able to diversify? Because if you look at traditionally in the telco, because of all this layering,
Yeah.
minimum, it takes between 16 to 18 months to launch a new product. That's at minimum.
Wow. Yeah.
That's at minimum. That's
Mm.
just by the time you launch it, you've missed all, especially now at the pace we're moving with technology, right?
Yeah.
So that part needs to move at a much faster pace. So this aggregation is something that I'm paying attention to the economic side of it right now.
Yeah. But that's interesting. So, because like the
Yeah,
pace is, we talked about that in the very early part of the
yeah,
podcast. Like the rate
yeah.
of change is not slowing down. It's not going to slow down. So
No,
like,
no.
and so they're hampered by regulation, which makes sense. I haven't really kind of processed that and took
Yeah,
that into account. And so if they can look at other organizational models, that will free them up to be able to move faster, then yeah,
right.
that's the right thing to do. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'll keep an eye on Telecom Italia, and as
yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of like the use case,
The use case, right?
for that disaggregation, and kind of like see how that's going. No, that's really good.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so we have so you're going to be doing a panel. I don't know, we're calling it the AI
Oh,
networking
nice.
summit. On kind of segment routing, right? So it's
Okay.
like yeah, so it's okay. How do we? So almost like what is the as AI does come into the protocols, as we mentioned before, into the protocol stack. So can we do routing
Yeah.
differently? Like right now we kind of base routing on lowest cost, and
Mm-hmm.
we run shortest path first, or BGP, and
Right.
we run the Dijkstra model,
Right.
and then we go
Dexter.
hop
Yeah.
by hop. With AI, can we actually make that much more interesting? Can we do a posture assessment, security
Right.
posture, assessment, of a particular route? Can we look at, not just the what that cost is, but a real dollar cost? What is the latency associated with that? What is the overall delay and the jitter associated, maybe with that link? And how does that maybe get presented back up to an application? So
Right.
I'm wondering, on those kinds of things. I'm hoping that's the kind of discussion that you'll have on that panel. So,
Okay. Great. Yeah. Yeah. No. No.
we're
That's
trying
great.
to like
Yeah. Yeah. No.
get
I
some
think
really
it's
good
a
stuff
hot
on
topic. Absolutely. And you mentioned segment routing. That's one that I helped develop the initial use cases for that.
it.
Maybe 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I could send you that you could distribute to the audience. It's a little
Yeah,
technical, but one of the things that was getting frustrating for me was all this terms on technology. I'm like, what are the use cases? Right?
yeah,
What are the use cases? So, and
yeah,
here, how, so So I could send that as an area, but I think you're right because you mentioned, let's say, security, you mentioned AI. I always say security is as strong as your weakest link, number one, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
anomaly detection at the volume that we're getting now, in many cases, security has become, or the bad side of security is somewhat professionalized. You've got things like black clouds that you can do massive DDoS attack by just propagating to a cloud verse. So that volume is starting, and it's difficult to keep up. And I think there's opportunities for AI to leverage, an end-to-end security, because you could have
Mm.
security in one strong part of the company, but if you've got some weak links, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right? And I think this is where I'm excited about potentially how AI can leverage some of those anomaly detections and be able to look at bad actors in the system at a volume that is difficult for the existing platforms that we have to keep in that case there.
Yeah.
And then the simplification of the architectures, because you touched on early on, is we can't keep building networks the same way we have in the past. Things are
Mm.
changing too rapidly. We need to revisit how the way we design networks, how we build architectures, how we layer them, and is there a more efficient way to do this? So I think it's an opportunity for telcos and enterprise to say, do we have to do it this way? Do we have to question this way and stuff like that? Because I always say engineering school it taught me that there were 7 layers on the OSI model, Nick, and I always say, man, engineering school was wrong when I got into the consulting world. There's politics and religion being 8 and 9 layer, right?
Yeah.
The eighth and ninth layer. But then there's a 10th layer called economics, right? Because I
Yeah.
used to love ATM, right? You can slice and dice.
Yeah.
People talking about triple play. I'm like, I did that back
Yeah.
in the 90s, triple play. But
Yeah.
when it costs you $1,200 for a NIC card versus 69 from a, let's say, 3Com at 100,
Yeah.
it just
Or
the
fries.
economics. So yeah, right. So I
Yeah.
think we're at a standpoint that we have to almost
Mm.
revisit to say we've got this powerful capability. Do we need to continue building networks and environments the same way we are today? Is there more?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the cloud providers, right, we almost need to change that mindset in the enterprise and in the service provider, because with cloud providers, if it's not simple, if it's not
Yeah.
automated, if it doesn't have complete visibility, they don't let it into their network or to
Yeah.
their
Oh, that's
environment,
that's very true. Yeah. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And that's
Yeah.
just and it works because you look at their OpEx cost to manage a network versus a traditional tier one. They don't have that mindset from that point of view, right? So I think
Yeah.
you're seeing the way people build networks are trying to revisit now. Can we leverage AI to do it more better? And we're seeing pockets of it, like with AI and remediation and optimization, but we need to see it at a bigger scale now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I think that's such an important point. I think there's the reimagining of every part of the infrastructure. So it's whether it's in the data center, whether it's in the wide area network, how we're connecting into different type of cloud providers. Um, what's the security infrastructure that we built, as well, like the plethora of tools that are out there on the security side of things. I think that needs to really be rethought as well. And but there is a lot of that discussion happening, the whole reimagining of what this infrastructure should look like. Um,
Right.
we're nowhere near like what are the design patterns,
Yeah.
for this yet. And I think that's, if we start proposing design patterns, we're not really having the full discussion and looking to really what is the real set of problems that we're trying to solve. So I'm kind of hopeful that that this year is kind of like a data gathering, try to understand, absorb a lot
Hmm.
of this, these new possibilities, and start to like explore, how do we want to reimagine these parts of the infrastructure, and then
Yeah.
2025 and 2026 is, I think, starting like the industry proposing products and design patterns, but there is going to be like beginning, I think like starting at the AI networking summit, in May, that I think is going to be the start of like some uh, products that would be traditionally in the enterprise space that are being rebuilt from the ground up with AI. So
Hmm.
Juniper started
Nice.
that
Yeah.
process, I think, with the
Right.
AI native networking
Right.
initiative they have, like based upon Mist. There's a whole line of products that are behind that. So I think this year we're going to see a plethora of new products like coming into the
Yeah.
marketplace that are really geared towards. And you had mentioned some of those before. The operational side
Right.
of this equation, of infrastructure. So how do you eliminate the toil? How do you really provide automation that you can trust?
Right.
Into this so that you can actually bring that operational cost maybe not so much down, but keep it steady while you're actually growing.
Steady.
Because
Right. Right.
yeah, there are like so many
Yeah.
open recs for security engineers and network engineers that we're
Oh, there
never
you
ever
go.
going to fill.
Yeah.
So like I think that's kind of a fool's errand to try to like, try to fill all those recs. So you really, I think, now it's really around how do you automate and how do you kind of bring the power of AI to that. And I think the
Yeah.
vendor community is leading. That they have to lead.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this is an
They have
area
to.
where like the consumer, they consume products. They can provide input, on the design and their requirements. They don't design product, and so
That's right.
it's like if I even think about like at the ONU community, for the last 10 years, it was very much a loud consumer voice around requirements and what's needed. That has flipped
Yeah.
totally towards the
Right.
end of last year and now into this year. They want to hear from the vendor community. All right, how do we think about this? What are our options?
Yeah.
How does this fit into like what we're currently doing? I'm being asked to
Right.
like how to support these AI workloads. I don't even know how to start with that. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's a real pivot that happened in
Yeah.
the
It
industry
is.
this year. And so
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is that we're in for like kind of and we have been in an exciting period. I think it's only going to accelerate during the next
Yeah.
at least 18-24 month time frame. So
Yeah. I'm super excited where this is going.
yeah, me too. Well, Ray, I think that might be a good place to end, unless like you have anything else that you want to like add.
No, I mean, I think one thing maybe to add is as people, because of those OSI layers I told you about,
Yeah.
politics, religion, but economics, is that's one thing because you ask about, hey, what are some of the exciting things is being able, we're working on, and I think as people transition, is make sure you're just not doing, because a lot of the architectures are built based on performance and latency, not
Mm,
on economics. So working with a few large carriers and having true real-time cost in real time, right,
yeah.
of any part of the network, so that when they have a baseline of what, when you bring in automation AI, you can see is the needle moving this way or the needle moving that way. So having
Mm,
quite a bit of conversations on, they're good at having top line expense and OpEx and stuff like that, CapEx, but they don't know it to the micro level. And when you don't know it to the micro level, it's difficult for you to optimize your existing environment. So
yeah.
working with a few on having that visibility that will also forecast where these expenses are going based on using AI, right? Machine learning, right? So that part is pretty
Mm,
exciting, working with some of those. So as some of those use cases get further, I can talk to you more about it there. Yeah.
okay. Awesome. Well, that's a great endpoint. Economics
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
end to end, being able to kind of like actually measure that. As it happens. Yeah, it's something we don't have. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Ray, thank you
Awesome.
so much for taking the
Yeah. Thank
time. It's really great to
you. Yeah.
hang out with you as always.
It's
Thanks for
been an
sharing
honor.
so much as
Yeah.
well.
Thank you.
I'm really just, I always admired you. I admire you even more now with like all that work that you've been doing, like in your
Oh,
community.
thank
And
you.
I got a lot of respect for your dad. It's like, you did a great job. All right. Thanks,
Good,
Ray.
good. Thank you. Hey, thank
Thank
you.
you,
It's an honor to be
everyone.
here. Thank you, everyone. Bye
Awesome.
bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.